going on, everybody? Welcome back to the DFS Dose YouTube channel. I'm Ben Hauver, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top cash game plays for Week 13 on Draftkings. If you're new to the channel and like what you see, man, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out, helps us grow, reach more viewers. And if you're ever interested in any of the other content we do, we drop 2 podcasts every single week, available on all podcast platforms. We also have a free Discord channel. If you want to connect with us, the link to join that is in the description below. Finally, we do a late night live stream every Saturday evening around 11 p.m. Eastern. You can jump in that, ask us any questions you have about the slate. We'll give our final thoughts as all of the news has finally come together by that time, and we can give a final bit of insight onto the slate. You can ask us, any DFS questions, season-long questions, anything. We try to get to everybody in the chat. Always a great time, so come through for the stream on Saturday nights. Without any further ado, let's get into the top cash game plays at each position on Draftkings in Week 13. Starting off at the quarterback position, the one big piece of news that we don't yet have is what Jalen Hurts' status is going to be. He is priced at $7K. The most recent quote that I read this morning from Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, was that they are not yet sure about Jalen Hurts' status for this game. Now, I think Hurts, on the surface, if everything was okay, would be the number one play on the slate. He's in an absolute smash spot against the hopeless New York Jets, but with his injury being an ankle and so much of his fantasy value being dependent on his mobility and his ability to rush, it does throw things off a little bit for Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders is also going to be healthy in this spot, so I think the team could lean on Sanders and Boston Scott heavily in a game that shouldn't be too competitive. They may not need to ask Jalen Hurts to do too much to win this game. If they were to sit him, Gardner Minshew at 4K, I would feel comfortable playing him. I don't think Minshew is like a good quarterback. He's probably a lot closer to bad than he is to great. But at the same time, at 4K, it does not take much to get there. It's a favorable matchup, and there are definitely worse backup quarterbacks in the league. So if for some reason Hurts does get ruled out in this spot, I would feel absolutely fine playing Gardner Minshew at 4K. But if Hurts is active and the questions around his ankle are still there, I think the move is probably to save $300, go down to Justin Herbert. He's 6,700. He's got this projected shootout with the Bengals. Now, again, this is another situation where we have to monitor things. There are some weather concerns for that game between Cincinnati and LA. Overall, I think Herbert is a solid play. He's got a decent floor and a really high ceiling, as we've seen at multiple points this year. This could be an absolute back and forth shootout. Earlier in the week, I was considering Joe Burrow for a few $100s less. But as my podcasting co-host Joey pointed out on the podcast, there are situations where Joe Mixon can vulture so much of Cincinnati's scoring. Right now, quarterback is still the one position I feel relatively uncertain about, so I would recommend you come back for the Saturday night live stream. We'll probably have a little bit more insight onto the status of Jalen Hurts by that point, hopefully. Right now my lean is Justin Herbert, just because, you save $300 to go down to him, and, it just really mitigates some of the concerns we have with Hurts's ankle. But, this is a situation to monitor for sure. At the running back position, Jonathan Taylor this week, it's really hard not to just want to jam him in. He is 9,200 in an absolute smash spot against the Texans. Last time he played the Texans earlier in the year, he ran for 145 yards, scored 2 touchdowns. He's on an absolute monster streak of just putting up fantasy points every single week. I think he's fully worth the salary. I think he is the primary pay-up option this week, and not much really needs to be said about Jonathan Taylor. He's the RB1 right now, clear cut. And I think that, in terms of cash games, you can't go wrong by playing him week in and week out, especially in a week like this where we have value and he is in a complete, uninhibited smash spot. Alexander Mattison is also a great play, and I guess that's the one thing that you could knock on JT. It's like, do you want to pay up the extra money to get to 9,200 when Mattison is sitting there at 7,600? We have another sample where Mattison also played the team he's playing this week against the Lions earlier in the year, and he smashed. And both of the games that we saw Mattison play this year without Dalvin Cook in were great games by Mattison. He got a full workload on the ground, and he also had 15 targets in those 2 games, 7 targets in one, 8 targets in the other. So just the fact that he's utilized that heavily as a pass catcher when Dalvin Cook is out of the lineup is a great sign. It's an awesome spot going up against the Lions. So I do like Mattison. I don't know. From a value perspective, the projections are telling you to go with Jonathan Taylor. So my lean right now is to go with Taylor. I also like the way that the lineup fits with Taylor. It just lets you get, really to all the right pieces, I think. So right now my lean is Taylor. and to skip Madison, which is definitely hard to do because he is a solid play. But because of this value that we have 6K and under, I think you play Taylor and you probably play two of these value guys. The three guys I think that stand out the most are Eli Mitchell at 6K, Antonio Gibson at 5,700, and Jamal Williams at 5,400. All three of these guys are solid plays. I think Jamal Williams is the odd man out at 5,400. He's the cheapest of the group and should get a really decent workload this week in a favorable matchup against Minnesota. DeAndre Swift has already been ruled out. Jamal Williams will be utilized as a pass catcher. But I think the thing that separates him from these other two guys is that Antonio Gibson, as we saw last week, has 30-plus touch upside. Eli Mitchell as well has had just monster workloads over the past 2 weeks. 27 touches in each of his last two games, including last week where he also saw 6 targets in the passing game. It's a great matchup for Eli Mitchell. It's a great matchup for Antonio Gibson. But I just think that the touch ceilings on both of those guys are significantly higher than Jamal Williams. I don't think there's any scenario where Jamal Williams is really touching the ball, 20-plus times in this spot. He's probably going to get 13 to 14 to 15, attempts on the ground, probably 5 or 6 targets. So, maybe he caps out at around 21, 22 touches. And to me, that's more so like the floor of these guys in Gibson and Mitchell. Obviously, Gibson right now is benefiting from J.D. McKissic being out, so his pass game usage should be elevated just like it was last week. And it's a great spot going up against the Vegas Raiders. Eli Mitchell last week, had the broken finger, could barely hold the ball, and still got an absolutely crazy workload. He is the centerpiece right now of the 49ers offense, and the Seattle defense is just absolutely abysmal. It's embarrassing right now. So those are the two guys that I think stand out the most in terms of value, and Jonathan Taylor is my favorite pay-up option. So it's definitely a 3 running back week. Those are the 3 guys that I would definitely lean towards right now. Madison is a fine play. I wouldn't blame anybody for going there. Jamal Williams is a fine play. In most weeks, he would probably be a lock. It's just the way that this Mitchell and Gibson stuff is shaken out has really, given you an embarrassment of riches, if you will. You can really go with whichever way that you want to go. And for me, it's going to be Mitchell and Gibson in that cheaper range. At the wide receiver position, the biggest conversation that we're having this week is sort of the same one that we had last week, and it's going to be a discussion between Deontay Johnson and Chris Godwin. Now, the way that I looked at it last week was that Chris Godwin was more expensive. That's not the case this week. He's actually $200 cheaper than Deontay Johnson. And I think that Godwin's range of outcomes is wider just because he has games where he's not, the primary focus of the Bucs passing attack. It could be a Gronk game, it could be an Evans game, and that wouldn't really be surprising. So I think the range is definitely a lot wider with Chris Godwin. Of course, that range also includes a much higher ceiling than what Deontay Johnson has. And especially on a week like this, where I think there's going to be a lot of high ceiling options in everybody's cash game lineup, I actually think I want to prioritize ceiling and go towards Chris Godwin. That being said, the lineup that I have right now, it's possible to fit both guys and still play Jonathan Taylor. So I don't think you really have to have sort of the either or discussion that we had last week. Deontay Johnson may have less of a ceiling than Chris Godwin has, but his floor is sky high because of just the target share, 13 or more targets. And I think, 5 out of the last 6 games, it's just unreal. I really like Deontay Johnson this week. I think you play both of these guys and then you're really finding your way towards a wide receiver 3 that you like. It depends again on what we do with the quarterback situation, how low we're able to go. Can we punt down to Minshew and find another high-priced guy in our lineup? I'm not sure. If you're not able to, Josh Reynolds at 3,400 would be my preferred punt option. Devontae Parker is also in the mix. He's been talked about. He's projecting decently this week, but I think I prefer Reynolds as the de facto wide receiver 1 if you're going to the bottom of the barrel, sub 4K. It's a good matchup. Reynolds obviously already has chemistry with Jared Goff, and he sort of slipped right in and become, like I said, the de facto wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions. So I like Reynolds at 3,400. The two guys in the mid-range that stand out the most to me are Darnell Mooney and Brandon Ayuk. With Ayuk, Deebo Samuel is out, and that just further consolidates this offense. The concern with Ayuk, I think, is that it's not going to be a pass-happy approach unless Seattle is able to really push the 49ers, and I don't know, I just haven't seen anything out of Russell Wilson that makes me think that is necessarily going to be the case at this point. So I think that between the two, I prefer Darnell Mooney. He's had 3 straight games, I should say, with 20-plus points over the last 3 weeks. Allen Robinson, doubtful in this game. Andy Dalton is once again starting, which I think is, unfortunately for my Justin Fields best ball shares, a plus for him. But yeah, Mooney to me should have a great target share in this spot. He's an explosive player. He can get there on volume with Andy Dalton in the lineup, and he can get there off efficiency just because of the type of player that he is. So between the two, Darnell Mooney would be my favorite. Mooney is my favorite option, sub 6K at the wide receiver position. We're also waiting on some Odell Beckham news. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I think Van Jefferson would definitely be in play if Odell was to sit, but that's a situation for us to monitor. We'll talk about it on Saturday. And I mean, the only other thing to mention at wide receiver is Cooper Kupp, 9K. Not much needs to be said about Cooper Kupp. It's kind of the same thing with Jonathan Taylor. Like, you don't need me to tell you all the reasons why Cooper Kupp is a phenomenal play. Cooper Kupp is a phenomenal play every single week, and 9K. Darrell Henderson's status is unknown in this game, but if he were to sit, I mean, it would just be a more pass-happy approach. And if Odell's out, targets are going to be so consolidated really around Kupp, Van, and Higbee. So I don't know. I think that all these Rams guys are good plays this week. Cooper Kupp, smash every single week, always in play to break the slate. So, if you can find your way up to him, I think that you do. But to me, the priority this week is going to be Jonathan Taylor over Cooper Kupp, because more likely than not, unless Gardner Minshew opens up, you're only going to be able to fit one 9K plus player on DraftKings in cash. I'm going to just keep it simple at tight end. Foster Moreau is 2,700. He's got a plus matchup. He's a pass catching tight end. The price is great. Darren Waller's not going to play. I don't know. I just don't know what to say. Like, there's literally no reason to consider any other player in cash games. Moreau is a free square this week. You plug him in and you just sort of set and forget. I don't even have anything else to say really about the tight end position this week. And that's going to be it, guys, man. I hope you got some good information from this video. Hope that my process sort of helps you guys narrow down your player pool. If you guys have any questions about anything I said, drop it in the comments below. We'll get to it all. And feel free to please drop in the Saturday night live stream. We always love hearing from the people and just sort of talking back and forth about our favorite plays on the slate. Also get a little bit more into the tournament perspective on the Saturday night live stream. So check that out, guys. And thank you so much for watching. We will be back, like I said, tomorrow for the Saturday night live stream, and I'll be back with the week 14 edition of this video next Friday.